lights go dim, it's time to find out what's within. Behind the camera, there's so much more. With AndyGames, let's explore. Behind the camera with AndyGames, meet the streamers, learn their names. Off the screen, who are they? Tune in now, don't delay.
Hello everybody and welcome to Behind the Camera with AndyGames. This is the podcast where I interview people in the world of content creation and beyond with the sole purpose of getting to know the person a little bit better behind the camera. In this episode, I sat down with Alex Sanfilippo. Alex Sanfilippo is a podcaster and the founder of podmatch.com, a platform that automatically matches podcast hosts and guests for interviews. Through Podmatch and his podcast titled Podcasting Made Simple, Alex helps independent podcasters grow their influence and revenue so they can better serve their listeners. Here is the interview. Alex, welcome to Behind the Camera with AndyGames. It is an absolute pleasure to have you on the show. How are we doing today?
Andy, I'm doing extremely well and just really thrilled to be here with you today.
I absolutely love to hear that. Love to hear that. So yeah, let's just get into it. So your entrepreneurial journey started at the ripe age 10 years old selling golf balls. And now all of a sudden, some years later, you now are the founder of podmatch.com. So take us through this journey, how you went from just selling golf balls on the street in your neighborhood to where you are today.
Yeah, sure. Before I sold golf balls, I was kind of an odd kid. I was about 10 years old when I started doing that. But I had the self-awareness to realize that I wasn't good at a lot of things that my brothers and friends were good at. And I didn't have like a complex or anything like that. I just could tell like my friends were really good at sports. My brothers were all really good musicians. All of them were good at video games and they all got decent grades in school. And I had none of those things. And so again, I wasn't like beating myself up. I was like, I don't think I've found my thing yet. And I get that that's weird for like a 10-year-old to be that like, to be able to look internally and see that. And then one day I saw, was driving home and I say driving home, my dad was driving me home and I saw some kids selling lemonade in the corner. I'm like, what is that? And Dad's like, oh, they're selling lemonade. I was like, that's cool. They're making money. And he's like, yeah. I was like, and he's like, you want to do it? I'm like, yeah, I want to do it. And so me, my brother, and one of our neighborhood friends, we decided to sell lemonade. So our parents took us to the grocery store, got all the stuff, right? And they're kind enough to cover the cost. But my brother and my friend were like, we're making money. And in my head, all I could think is this isn't profitable. Like if we didn't have our parents buying this stuff, this wouldn't work. But where we were doing that happened to be right next to the golf course. There was a golf course across the street from our neighborhood. And I'd never given any interest to golf, but I'm watching golfers continue to hit every ball into the water or into the woods or straight at us and everywhere except for where it should go. And that's the reality of golf, right? No one's actually very good at it. So it's going everywhere it shouldn't. They're all getting angry and mad. And here I am with this thought of like, what we're doing isn't profitable. Like, I wonder if there's something there. And I'll never forget it. I actually went on the golf course because we weren't supposed to. So we had all the kids on the golf course and there was a golf ball just sitting there. I picked it up and I'm like looking at it. I was just going to toss it. But I was like, there might be something here. And like at that exact time, a golfer rides by in a cart and he yells. He's like, hey kid, what does that golf ball say on it? I was like, Titleist Pro V1. And he goes, I'll give you $3 for it. Listen, we were selling lemonade for like 10 cents. And I was just like, I just made $3. Like we don't make that much in like 2 hours of selling lemonade. Right. And so I kind of called everyone together. It was my brothers and some friends. I was like, guys, we see them hit balls in the lake every day. Can we get them out of the lakes? Can we get them out of the woods? Can we clean them up? Can we sell them? Let's try it. And so one thing led to another and two things happened. We started actually making profit, right? Like as young kids and being able to like buy toys and stuff like that, because that's what we did with it. But two, I actually discovered what I think I was really good at, which was entrepreneurship, business. This stuff just made sense to me. I was able to carry on a conversation with an adult because believe it or not, an adult golfer wants to negotiate the price on a golf ball with a 10-year-old kid. So like the things that you kind of learn as a young kid, it was really fun. And that was actually a cool experience for me. Now that was only from 10 to 12. Like I think you can only get away with that stuff when you're young and cute, right? Before someone's like, hey kid, give me my ball back. I hit them in the water yesterday, right? Like, but for a couple of years, we had a good run. It was a lot of fun. And for me, what it did is just kind of made me, again, realize what I was good at. So fast forward through all of my teen years as I was getting close to that, eBay became a thing around that time. And I loved toys. So I like loved action figures, loved like Legos and all that stuff. And I found there was like a market for that stuff. You could flip it. You could buy an entire set of like 50 to 100 different G.I. Joes, pick the 3 or 4 that you want, add some other ones into it and sell it and make a profit. There's all kinds of things like that you could do. So I just started flipping things on eBay and really got good at understanding how it worked, the do's and the don'ts, all that stuff like made sense to me. And then fast forward a few more years, 16. This was my first like real business venture that actually was paying taxes and everything. So one of my dad's friends was, I shouldn't say an acquaintance of my dad, and he was like, I'm looking for someone good on a computer. And it was still those years, right, where like not everyone was good on computers yet. It was just past the age of dial-up, right? Like, so it was still very young, very new. And my dad's like, well, my son's he's young, but he's pretty business-minded. He's very good on computers. And so one thing led to another. I ended up being part of a technology startup where we were building virtual tours of homes. And now that's more common. Basically, it's where you drag your mouse from like one side of the screen to the other and move you around a house. You can look at the roof, look at the floor, all that. And so I did that through like, I guess half my high school, like halfway through high school. So I was like 16 through 20 or something like that is when I was like really heavily doing this, and built a great team around it. Of course, paying taxes is a real business, my first real business, right? And had a blast, man. The whole thing was a lot of fun. And that kind of got me interested in real estate as well. Like I was actually just fascinated about it, because I was working in real estate, but like on the tech side. But I was like, man, I want to own real estate. Like I think that's something I really want to do. And so for me, I made a kind of a commitment to myself to start investing in real estate when I turned 18. As soon as it was like legal to do that, right? Like I was going to go for it. And so I bought my first rental property at 18 years old. And I had a good down payment, didn't even need like a cosign. Like I was doing well financially for my age. It was just, again, I found my thing, right? It wasn't music, school, sports. It wasn't any of those things. This was my thing. And so I got into it. And around this time, it was probably maybe a couple years after this. I was probably 19 or maybe almost 20. And I don't know if you feel the same way, but the dates all get blurry.
Oh yeah, 100%. Yeah, like that's how I consider my 20s at this point. To be honest, like just that long, like gone are they, and I'm just like, so 21 or 22 into this. Don't know, but yeah, 100% get you.
Right. Okay. Cool. So for everyone listening, hopefully you feel the same way. You're like, why does this guy not remember how old he was with things? Just wait. If you don't know that yet, wait a little bit. And you'll be like, I get it now. But so around that age, I was actually sitting in a dentist in the waiting room. This is before smartphones had like anything really to do. So I was just kind of sitting there, and they always had magazines sitting around. I saw a Forbes magazine, and it was a specific issue that said top 30 under 30 or something along those lines. I remember opening up, and it was showing the most successful people under the age of 30. And I just like flipping through it, and I was like, man, this is so cool. And I was like, I want to be this. Like, I want to be one of these 30 under 30, and real estate is going to be my vehicle. I've got the tech startup, and I've got now rental properties. Like this is going to be me. I'm going to be in this, and this is my lane, my vehicle. And I didn't mean for this to happen, but like my identity got wrapped up in that, man. Like that became who I was. And at this point in my life, I already was kind of an odd late teenager, early 20. Like I didn't have a lot of friends, and it's not because I wasn't social and stuff like that. I just didn't leave a lot of room for that. Like between high school and now a little bit of college and running a tech startup and trying to manage rental properties, like between those things, it was a lot. And so the people I was around were other people that were just doing business stuff. And some of them were even a little bit older than me, which made sense, right? Like they were, I was doing a lot for my young age. And I say that as humbly as I can. But anyway, my identity got wrapped up in these things. And I ended up buying like a fancy sports car, and had the real fancy girlfriend that liked me because I had money, apparently. Like all the things that kind of come with the nature of who I was becoming. And I'm not saying this to beat myself up. The reality is my identity was wrapped up in all the wrong things, man. Like all the wrong things. And you can maybe, if anyone's kind of putting some dates in their head, you might see where this is going. Well, I didn't realize that there was going to be a crash in 2008, 9, 10, 11, 12. Like I didn't see this coming, and all my eggs were in this real estate basket. And so at this point, what looked like really smart financial decisions on buying rental properties, scaling my startup, looked really good on paper and really smart, but I couldn't see that there was like a doomsday coming up, right? Like that I was going to have a hard stop. And sure enough, that day finally came. Yeah. And man, like I woke up and it almost crashed. I mean, if anyone like saw like The Big Short or anything like that movie, of course they dramatized it a little bit, but the reality is it hit that fast. Like there was no time to get out. Once that process started, it was too late. Like you had to have some foresight to be able to get out of it before it was, again, too late. And so for me, it hit, and I didn't see any of it coming. So this technology startup that we were doing, I don't know how many tours per day. We called them tours, like virtual tours of homes. We had photographers out in the field every day. We had editors working it. We went from doing 30 plus homes a day to 1 per week.
Wow.
If that gives you an idea of like how bad that market got, right? And it was all commercial or all residential real estate. So it was like just a hard stop. Everyone got let go. I didn't even sell the company. There was a partner in it. And I just was like, here, it's yours. Keep whoever you want, do whatever you want with it. I will sign it all off to you. I have nothing here. Like there is nothing. And so I just completely just disappeared from it. There was just nothing happening. And then I moved into one of my rental properties. Like I had to. Like I didn't. It's either that or let it go to the bank. And I was like, I guess I can. I have some savings. I can move into it. Um, and man, like that was a tough season. I remember I called my dad. And I was like, hey, because he was in the aerospace industry at this point, and I was like, hey, like I don't know if you saw, like, if you're noticing, like this place is collapsing. How's your industry doing? He's like, actually, it's thriving. Like I'm in the right space for it. I'm doing really good. And so I was like, any chance you can like get me a job somewhere? And he's like, I can get you an interview. I was like, all right. And by the way, like I'm gonna say I'm very thankful. Like my last name Sanfilippo means something in the aerospace industry, and that's because my dad, he like really paved the way for that. So like I was able, like I was going for an interview knowing I'd probably get offered an entry level job at the very least, because like, oh, you're Andy Sanfilippo's son, like of course we're gonna give you a job, right? So, and man, I'm talking a lot here, so I want to take a pause for a minute. But I end up going into that industry, and I got a part-time receiving clerk job at an aerospace manufacturing company, and that basically meant I broke down boxes and took out trash. And so, like, if you think about where I was to where I went, dude, it was tough, man. It was the most humbling time of my life. It was when I hit rock bottom. All the friends, air quotes there, that I thought I had, when money disappeared, they disappeared. The girl ran away as well, looking for, and I'm not trying to be mean. That was just where she was in life, where I was in life. And everything just kind of like it all crashed. Everything went crash and burn. And now I'm in a very humble position at a company that thankfully at least was doing okay. But yeah, that was I know there's plenty more gaps to fill, but I want to take a pause from here and give you a second, because I've been talking a lot here. So.
No, of course. Like that, you know what though? This is exactly what this is about, is just sort of giving you the floor just to tell your story. But like, what I like about that is the fact that everything like that happened right up until the crash, it all seemed to be like just a chain of events. One thing led to another in the most like organic way possible. Like, and it all starts in this. I feel like this is like some kind of hallmark of America's lemonade stands, because you don't really get that here in the UK, but like it's something you hear about a lot in the States. Is like lemonade stands, and then based on the location, it turned into golf balls, and then being good with computers turned into a tech startup based around real estate, and then so on and so forth. Like I just think that's, I kind of feel like that takes a gift to have that kind of, I don't want to say foresight as such, but like just being that eagle eye to be able to spot these little gaps and think, okay, I can do that. It's like, to go back to what you said, it's like when you find what you're good at, in comparison to like say the other kids your age around that time. Like I think it is, because I don't think like a lot of kids really do think that, or if they do, it's like sports and maybe music, like you say. But because I know for me as a kid, it was sports. That was my thing, and then it's been a long time removed from that.
Right. That's funny.
You know, sorry, go on.
So you bringing all this up, it actually makes me think of an episode of your show again. I'm a listener of your show. You have something amazing here. I love the title, Behind the Camera. Like I'm first and foremost a creator is how I identify. And so getting to hear this, like what is behind the scenes with these other creators is beautiful. And I was thinking about an episode that you did, and I'll actually call it out because I want to encourage people to listen to it. It was, it's episode 36 with Terry M. Brown, aired on April 13th, 2025. And, she was talking about how, like, she basically said, if someone is completely perfect, people don't resonate with that. Humanity isn't perfect, and people resonate with that, right? Like that's what they resonate with. And it was something along those lines that Terry said that really spoke to me, because the story I've shared thus far up to like hitting this rock bottom, like everything kind of seemed like it fell into like Hallmark. It seemed perfect. Like everything just kind of fell into place. And the reality is it kind of did. And I think that's where my identity got messed up, is because I felt like I could do no wrong. Like everything just to that date, like worked for me. And that's honestly a terrible place to be, because I needed the humbling experience that I fell into. And I'll get more into that in a minute, but I just think the way that you kind of shared it, I think is really insightful, because no one's ever like brought it back to me that way. I'm like, man, things just kind of fell together. I'm grateful that it didn't stay that way, because I would not resonate with anybody or relate people. If I was just like, yeah, everything's always worked perfect for me, never had a struggle or problem, like that isn't human. That's not how it works. Right. And yes, I had, I don't know if you want to call it luck or people just looking out for me, or having to be a person of faith. I mean, I wasn't back then, but like maybe God was looking out for me at that point. I don't know. But the reality is I needed what happened to me to happen to me to become the person that I am today. So anyway, I just thought it was really insightful that you brought that point up in there, because no one's ever mentioned that before.
No, I appreciate that. And I appreciate you being a listener of the show. Honestly, that does mean a lot, and especially because the fact that there was an episode that specifically you got something out of, and like to me, that's exactly the whole point of this. So I appreciate that. Um, yeah, and like to go back to your point as well about like when you're at the sort of like height of your career at the time, and very very business minded, looking at the Forbes 30 under 30, and you know to more specifically the point you made about like not having very much friends, but more due to that, like due to like a like-mindedness thing, I suppose you could say, just older people. That's sort of what you would like sort of associate them with, being more business, especially if you're like 18 years old looking at the Forbes of 30 under 30. Still, there's a bit of a gap there. Um, when the crash happened, then, like, do you feel like it was like a humbling experience? Like you say, you needed it, but like, at what point did you think, okay, I need to rebuild in something different, as opposed to, okay, I'm going to get back to where I was?
Yeah. So this kind of is right where the story leaves off. I took this aerospace job, and really like the first few months, especially, like I kind of walked around like a defeated person.
Mm-hmm.
Like I wanted to tell everyone how good I was doing, like at the company. And now I actually felt alone. I felt like I did my job and went home, and that was it. Like I think I was still playing video games at that point. Again, I was never good at them, so it was like that was depressing, right? Like one thing if I could play well, but I, I I don't know how to describe it than rock bottom. I felt depressed. I felt alone. I felt anxious. Like I felt all the feelings of like what you'd expect a young adult in that time. And at this point, I was 20 maybe, and man, it was tough. And so there was like a moment that changed everything for me though. And I remember like always check my mail because I'm the type of person like I keep up with my stuff even if like I'm doing bad. Like I still need to pay bills. I was just not doing well, bad investments, all that stuff. So I was like always expecting bills in the mail. And one day I checked the mail, and sure enough, there were some bills, but there was also like a postcard for like a young adults church ministry. And like I was growing up, like I grew up like a little bit religious, like a religious family, but I was not like into that. Like as soon as I
Yeah.
kind of like, as soon as I was of age, like I was done with that. But here I'm looking at this card, and I'm like, I just look at the address and I'm like, oh man, that's got to be like directly across the street from where I live. Like that must be like literally, it was like my neighborhood, some woods, and then a business park. I'm like, it has to be like right on the other side. I could probably walk there, right? And so I'm a very organized person. So typically I'd handle anything that comes in the mail right away and then throw it away. I don't like leaving stuff on the counter, but I left it in the corner of the counter. And I was like, oh, I don't know why. Like I can't even describe it, Andy. I was like, I wanted to throw it away, but I was like, I'll leave it here. And the weird thing is, again, for me, it's weird to have anything sitting overnight, to say the least. It's sat there for like 3 weeks, and I just couldn't bring myself to throw it away. And so finally, I was like, man, if I go, maybe I can toss this thing, like maybe I can get rid of it. And all this time, having that part-time job, still just struggling, feeling really alone. And so I was like, you know what, I'm gonna like, I know that my family told me about this type of thing, but like I never took it seriously. But I'm gonna go and just let me just I don't know why. I feel like I'm supposed to go. So I remember like getting there to like the parking lot of it and then being stuck in my car. And when I say stuck in my car, like I was like, oh man, these people are gonna realize I'm a failure. Like this is a mistake. Right. And also I'm like, and also this thing about my identity at that point, which is wrapped up in my strictly financial success and my business growth and my I guess my influence, right? All that stuff. That was it. Like it had no depth to it. I was also like, man, if like God is real, like God doesn't want me. Like I'm a mistake, like in every way, like I'm a failure. Like this is wrong. Like I'm not going to go. And I still can't describe it, man. But like I guess I just got courage. And the way I describe courage is like being afraid than doing what you have to do anyway.
Yeah.
And so like I felt like I was afraid, and I was like, you know what? Like something's telling me to go. I'm going to go. So I walked in, and I'm not going to go too deep into all this, but I'll tell you what, like I walked in and I can't describe what happened, but I just felt something change inside of me. One, people weren't judging me, which was great. Like I got to meet some people that like, they didn't, when they learned more and more about me, they didn't want to back away. They just really, they seemed to really love me for who I was. And so one, the bonus, I consider this the bonus. I started finding true friends because I went back. Like I didn't just go one time, I went back. I did throw away the postcard, but I kept on going. But when that first time I was there, I just felt like, I don't know how to describe it, man, but I just felt like I felt this peace. And the only way I can describe it is like, I felt like Jesus from the Bible, like met me there and said like, it's okay. I love you for who you are. And man, I like broke down. I like cried. I was never a crier. And that was the moment that things shifted for me. Like that was absolute. I'd say sitting in my car was the rock bottom of the rock bottom, and 20 minutes later was the turn where things started to curve back up. And it was all just like this encounter, for lack of a better term, that I'm terrible at describing. Man, all I can say is like, for me, the love of God is real. And so I remember the next day, like now, like think about it, I'm starting to build some friendships. I feel like my identity instantly was just like crushed, torn, and like there's something new building inside me. I walked into work that next day because it was a Wednesday night. Thursday morning, I walked into work with a different mindset on, you know what, if I'm here, let me just do the best I can.
Yeah.
Let me just apply the things that I've done my whole life here as well. And so I went from being the guy who's just slowly walking around, not really wanting to talk to people, to realizing, oh, this is kind of inefficient. This trash can's always full. Let's put a bigger trash can here. This trash can never gets touched. Let's move it somewhere else. And then there's 3 different, it was a big business. So there was like multiple places where people would like break down boxes and stuff like that. Like, let's put them on carts and take it to a central location for safety purposes. And like little things like that would just, before I was at rock bottom, those are things I would have noticed. And I was back to noticing them again, but with a different mindset. Instead, it was like, you know what? I'm blessed to be here, was the mindset. Having a job in that economy at that point was a gift. A company that wasn't going to go under was a gift. And so I was like, let me just do my best here. And that got noticed. I went from this part-time guy to getting full-time opportunities. And I don't mean to like fast forward an entire career, but I ended up doing 15 years at this company. And I went from that part-time guy to being part of the C-suite by the end of it. And it was a private company when I started. I'd say mid-size private company to a multi-billion-dollar publicly traded company by the time when I eventually left. But I just started operating as an entrepreneur, like I was inside this business, and that is now a coined term called an intrapreneur. So an entrepreneur inside of an organization. I just applied those principles, and like it all came from like my newfound faith. I'm like, let me just really do my best, and let me just show up and be a light. And man, I applied that, not perfectly, but I did really well with it. And so that career was like absolutely a blessing to me. It got me out of a hole. It took a long time, right? Financially hit zero again at some point, but ended up learning a lot and loving it. And that was like my sprint, 15-year sprint of like being in big corporate, like an American business. And it was a real blessing.
Yeah, like, and what's interesting to me about that is like, when you got into this job, it sounds like as though you lost your innovative drive that you had, like as an entrepreneur before, but all it took was just like, just receiving this, even to go back, like just to receive this postcard and not immediately throw it away. Like that was the sort of first domino, as I suppose you could tell. And like, it's always interesting, these little things. I think fate works in like such mysterious ways. Like, what would have happened had you thrown that postcard away? But the fact that there was a reason why you didn't, even if you don't know why that might have been, just the fact that you had to go, you know, like that really was sort of, like I said, domino effect. And then you say being rock bottom in your car in the parking lot, it's like, I can't do this. But something I always find with things like that is like, the idea of doing something is way more scary than actually doing it. Like and obviously in your case, and you know, I think this is like a relatable thing for anybody listening, is that when you go and do something, there is potential for it to be life changing. Even if you go and do this thing that you're kind of afraid of doing for whatever reasons, for a lot of what if reasons is what I like to call them. It's a case of like, well, okay, I did it, wasn't for me. Okay, well, let's find something else. But then regardless, then that drive is done, because the drive is back there because you've done something new. And like, obviously in your case, it sort of brought you back to where you were mentally, but like in a more, like the way it sounds to me is like in a more grateful kind of way. Like, you know, you get back to work, your innovative drive is back, but you're in a more way that you're grateful for where you are and that you can build on things. And obviously, fast forward 15 years, that's exactly what you did.
Yeah, man. I never thought about like, what if I just threw that card away? I've never actually sat with that thought before. That's probably worth on my own time exploring that. I won't do that to everyone here. The listeners, like, thank you, right? Like, but I never like actually thought like, what would my life look like had I not taken that step, right? Like, anyway, that's a thought for me later. But yeah, and I want to circle back to something you said, but if it's the right time, I want to continue the story. If that's
Of course, yeah, absolutely, absolutely.
Yeah. So I decided at year 13 I was ready to leave, and I didn't actually leave till year 15. And I say this because, again, the whole idea of like, oh well, what do you know, Alex is back on track, right? Like after that point is when ups and downs started happening a bit more. Like is when it really happened. So the reason I wanted to leave at year 13, and I think it's a story worth telling, is that's shortly after the company went public, and I helped with that. I was a key part in helping take it public, and there's an unbelievable amount of work to do. I will never be part of that again. That was a one-time thing. So one, I already felt like a little bit burnt out because it was a lot of work. It was a lot of hours. It was like all kinds of things. A good experience, but one I would never do again. But I can remember shortly after this, I got promoted when we went public. So I was part of the C-suite at this point. That's when I reached that point. So I reported directly to the CEO, and I was overseeing 5 divisions in the company. And I should mention, like, this is, I think maybe I did mention earlier, but this was a parts manufacturing company that focused below the atmosphere. So it wasn't anything fun like an astronaut, skydiver, or fighter pilot. So sorry, everybody. Like I was working behind computers, running teams. And at this point, I was started overseeing 5 divisions of the company. One of my divisions specifically saved a full 10% in our margin. So like we were like doing extremely well, like making a lot more money. And I was really proud of it. So like I went to my CEO's office, going to make sure he heard the news from me. And I wanted to get his reaction, right? So I walk over to his office from mine, and I'm like, hey, did you see the numbers from this department? And he's like, yeah, I saw them. But I could hear, Andy, I could hear the distress in his voice. So I kind of like leaned in. I'm like, hey, so, like we saved 10% margin over there. He's like, no, I saw it. I know. That's all he said. And I just kind of put my hands in. I was like, well, what's wrong? And he's like, man, we didn't tell the shareholders that we were doing that. We didn't tell the board we were doing that. Like it just kind of happened. And I was like, okay. He's like, we can't do that anymore, man. He's like, that's not how this works. He's like, and he formerly came from like GE Aviation, so he's used to like real big business. And he's like, we have to be different now. And he wasn't like scolding me. It was just kind of like, hey man, like we just can't operate that way anymore. And so again, I mentioned earlier, like I felt like an entrepreneur working in an organization, an entrepreneur, right? And now I realized on my walk out of his office back to mine, which wasn't a long walk, by the way, but it felt like a long walk for the very first time in that company. Like the walk felt heavy and it felt long. So, and I was thinking, I'm like, I'm not really an entrepreneur here anymore. Like now I'm, for lack of a better term, I don't mean to be rude, but like I'm kind of like a cog in the system. I'm just somebody here that just like helps move tape, right? Like, and I got to my office. I was on like the top floor, and I was like just looking out the window, and I was like, man, like I think it's time for me to leave. And that's like the first time I hit, and I was like, I think it's time for me to leave. Like I actually think it is. And I want to say this here. I worked there for 2 more years after this, and my performance never dipped. Yeah. And perhaps that's my faith that drives me, whatever you might call it. But I knew that as long as I was there, I was going to do the best I possibly could. In my 15th year, there was actually my best year. Like I ended on just the right foot, because I believe the way you end one season is the way that you start the next.
Yeah, absolutely.
And if we don't enjoy it, we don't want to be there, we've got to end right. And I've gone back to that company multiple times to like speak at different going away parties and stuff like that, which is cool. So like I clearly left on good terms, right? But there was that 2-year gap of me being ready to leave and not leaving. So because I was like, I have a good stable job, I'm not going to put myself in a bad situation. I'm going to try doing the whole side hustle thing. And so I just tried all kinds of things. Like I was good at I was always good on computers. So like I started like a little web design thing, hated that. Started doing some coaching, could never figure out how to like balance my mind. I just like always thought about how to help people. Yeah. And it was just not the right fit for me. Like I didn't have the right mind for it. Did some writing, did some speaking, tried all kinds of things, did some product stuff. And the reality is every single one of them would crash and burn. It would stop. I would hate it. It just wouldn't work. And I remember, Andy, I was sitting at home one day, I saw my wife. I'm like, I think I'm good at business, but I don't think I'm good at entrepreneurship anymore. Like, I don't get it. Like this just doesn't make sense to me. Nothing I'm doing is working. And so now I'll call it a brilliant idea. I didn't know it was a brilliant idea, but podcasting looked really interesting to me, Andy. I was like, this looks like a lot of fun. And I had some experience with it, but I was like, what if I started a podcast to talk to people who have successfully left a 9-to-5 job to become a full-time entrepreneur to learn how they do it? Again, back then, it just sounded like a cool idea. Now I'm like, wow, that was really brilliant. Like I didn't know it back then. But I started this podcast, and this is my first like all-in podcast, like really giving it all. And I learned 2 things. 1, how to become an entrepreneur, but 2, that I wanted the space that I would create some sort of business in to be podcasting. Like I fell in love with the medium of podcasting. And so ultimately that's what led me to what I'm doing now. And there's a bit of a story there that I'll share, but like that was again, like a bunch of little failures leading to one that finally was like me just learning from the people and figuring out like, oh, this is how you do it, right? And then ultimately podcasting becoming my lane.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think entrepreneurialism, I think is that's the word.
It is. Which, by the way, don't ask me how to spell that.
Yeah, I could barely say it, let alone spell it. So.
Right, same.
But like that is something that has changed like the weather, especially over like the last, I want to say decade, but maybe not. No, say about the last decade. Like it seems to have like changed a lot, and I think it's a big result of the digital age that we're in. Like, I mean, how many people do you see who like do TikTok for a living, or like they share Instagram posts, so just social media in general? Like that is their income, and like that is whatever their content may be, they are an entrepreneur based on that alone. Like there is like, I don't want to say it's like takes less work, because you and I both know content is a lot of work anyway. I think it's a lot more work than people actually realize, but I kind of feel like it's changed the game of entrepreneurship as a whole.
Yeah, and I agree with you that it has. Like it really has. We live in an interesting time. Like the idea of like the creator economy, the gig economy, like these are terms that people talk about where they're like, I create content for a living. Like if you would have said this was a thing, like let's even just go back to like, I don't know, let's go back to 2005. Like people be like, what do you mean you create content for a living? Like, what is that? What does that mean? Do you work for Hollywood? Like, what are you saying? Right. And now if someone's like, yeah, I'm a content creator, people are like, oh, cool.
Yeah.
Right. It's like things have changed with the gig economy where someone's like, hey, I do one-off jobs like this, and this is how I make a living. It's just, it's never been a better time to attempt to be an entrepreneur. Like to be one, absolutely. Yes, it still is a lot of work. It's tough, but at the very least, tell everyone, give it a shot. Yeah. Some people I know that I encourage to do that. I found out they didn't like it. They really love the stability of a corporate job and have a blast doing it. And listen, not everyone needs to be an entrepreneur. We're not all built for it. People that like that, I actually kind of envy them sometimes. I'm like, man, you can go to sleep and not have to think about it. You're right. Like it's someone else's company. You're working for them. They cover your benefits, all this stuff. Like it's on someone else. Like that's a beautiful thing. So it's not for everybody. And sometimes like content creation is a great side hustle. It's just your creative outlet. Like you don't need to do it full time. And as a matter of fact, I tell most people, like the longer you can keep what you're doing a hobby, the better it's going to be. Yeah. Eventually it might lead to full time. But the reality is if you have a job that you like, that's good for you, for your family, or whatever lifestyle you like to live, and then you have something on the side that just fuels you, that you enjoy, find a great balance and do it. Like that's such a fun thing to be part of.
Absolutely. And I think the balance is the most important thing. And I think it's something that content creators as a whole maybe sort of lose sight of in a way, because people who enjoy content creation, majority of them want to go full-time in doing it. But I'm not necessarily convinced that they might know what that will entail, because they're doing it as a hobby because they enjoy it, makes them a little bit of extra cash on the side. Great. But it takes months, years of planning. You have to sort of know what your consistent content can be that's going to secure you a decent pay every week, month, whatever it may be. And with algorithmic changes, like it's not necessarily a possibility. Like, you know, let's say people go into podcasting full time. It's like, now something I've always said, particularly on that front, is it only takes one episode that you have to make your podcast a hit, and then your back catalog is still there for people to go and view. That's the attitude I take, but I'm not necessarily trying to become a full-time podcaster. But at the same time, it's like just a hobby. But yeah, like I think people kind of get wrapped up in what it can produce sometimes, but at the same time, I think as long as you're producing good content, it'll take you where it takes you. But like, definitely, I agree with what you're saying, is keep that security while you have it.
The way that you just said that reminds me of a friend of mine. His name's Jordan Harbinger. He has a podcast. He's a full-time podcaster with just his podcast. Like I'm a software founder, right? Like that's what I have. But he's just a podcaster, the Jordan Harbinger Show, which is a really, really good show, by the way. I asked him, like, what is your suggestion for someone getting into podcasting that looks at you and wants to take steps toward that? And his advice was keep it a hobby as long as you possibly can. Yeah. He's like, the second that this becomes your main thing, like it is now officially a job. And he's like, and the quickest way to get burnt out is to make it a job and take the joy out of it, right? And so for him, he even admits, like, he doesn't always love doing his podcast, but he has to do it now. He's part of a network. It's a publicly traded company. Like, he has to produce and perform. And for those of us as a hobby, we have this level of purity in what we're creating, what we're doing, that doesn't force us to do anything. So it's just coming straight from the heart. And if we're just not feeling it, maybe we're not feeling it. And you're not like, oh man, I got a production company waiting on me. They're counting on me. They're making me write my paycheck, right? Like there's none of that. And so I thought that was really brilliant advice. And you just kind of voiced the same thing. It's whatever we're doing that's our side hustle, that's from creativity standpoint, from content, like we've got to love it. We've got to enjoy it. And so anyway, I think that's brilliant. You brought that up. And I think this is a good time for me to mention, like, I want to fill in a gap here, like of basically leaving the aerospace company and being full-time with what I'm doing now. Like, I think a lot of people just kind of want to breeze over it, right? But like, I'm not going to lie, that was a tough transition. But I want to quickly just share like how I became an entrepreneur, what I learned from my show, and kind of what led me to where I was. And basically it's 4 things. And I don't mean to oversimplify it, but step 1 is to find an area that you're passionate about. Like find a real passion. For me, it became podcasting. Like I loved podcasting. Like I was willing to stay up late. It was such a hobby, but it became more than that. Like I loved it. Find that area of passion. Step 1. Step 2 is to get into the community where you're passionate. So for me, I started looking at other podcasting conferences. Sure enough, my show was doing really well. So I started getting opportunities to speak at all these podcasting conferences. I started meeting other podcasters, networking with them, talking with them, becoming friends with many of them. So I was passionate. I was in the community. And the third thing is, and maybe this is like the most obvious one, but it's to find a simple problem that community is struggling with. And so for me, this is where the idea for Podmatch came from. I'll never forget it. I was on stage in 2020, right before the world shut down. There's 2,000 people in the room. And right when I got off stage, I was like, hey, before I got off stage, I was like, I'd love to meet anyone here who wants to chat for a minute. And so I had a notepad in hand. I wrote down their name, their email address, and what they told me they were struggling with. So it was handshakes, hugs, high fives, all that. I was like, so Andy, hey, you're a podcaster. What are you struggling with right now? And I heard a lot of things that day, but I heard 100 people. That's when I stopped. 100 people said, Alex, I'm having trouble finding the right guest for my show. Alex, I'm having trouble streamlining the process of the work involved in getting a guest booked on my show. Or, hey, I just wrote a book. I'd like to be a guest on a show. Like I kept on hearing these things. I was like, all right, like that's the idea. I'm passionate about this. I'm in the community. They're telling me that their problem right now is this whole like guest to host connection thing. And so that the 4th point on becoming an entrepreneur is now in the fastest way possible, solving that problem for the people that addressed it to you. And so for me, I was like, I came home to the whiteboard. And at this point, the world had shut down, by the way. So like I came back from the conference and the whole world shuts down. And I was a corporate guy, so I had like a wall of whiteboards because that's what we do in corporate. And so I used every section of that, writing out this idea. Like, and I just felt like, man, again, like this was one of those things I felt like came from God. It was like a download, man. Like I wrote it all down like so fast. I stepped back and I'm like, whoa. And the very last words I wrote down in the bottom corner said, like a dating app, but connecting podcast guest and host for interviews. And listen, I've been married too long to be on a dating app, but I get the idea of how they work, right? They connect ideal people together. They're supposed to do that, right?
Oh, 100%. Yeah. Like whenever I did sign up for Podmatch, that was like the way I described it to my wife. And I literally said, it was like, oh yeah, I've basically signed up for like, imagine Tinder, but for podcasts. And she just burst out laughing. She thought it was incredible. But yeah, so 100%, like I get what you mean with that.
Dude, thank you for saying that. I love hearing that. That just made my day. It means I wasn't off. And this was this was back in 2020. Yeah. So this was a while ago. And anyway, so that was March 10th, 2020 is when like I finished that up. I immediately called a friend who we had planned on working together, and he had just finished a multi-year project 2 days before I called him. And he's like, yeah, man, and he's a software developer. So we draft up paperwork. My wife became the other partner because she's great at operations, great at systems, and really good with like member support and stuff like that. She comes from like retail, so she's great with people. And so the 3 of us just signed documentation. We put $5,000 into a bank account and started. And that was March 10th, 2020. And on June 15th, 2020 is when we launched into our early beta. And you best believe I went back to that list that I took at that conference with the name and email address and emailed every single one of them saying, hey, Andy and Alex, can you try this? We built it, right? And for me, like I'm really big on things being an MVP. Like these are some of the things I learned when I had that podcast, right? MVP, minimum viable product. We didn't have a logo. I had spelling errors everywhere. Every page took 10 seconds to load, like all the bad things. But I only wanted to know one thing. Is this solving the problem that you told me you have? Yes or no? And people were like, hey, you need a logo. I'm like, not what I need to know yet. Is it solving the problem? I'm not gonna build a logo if this isn't working. And the reality is it worked really well. And I'm so grateful, by the way, like the timing and stuff, like I could not have planned the timing. Like this is just when it showed up, and it just happened to be like the right time. And I remember I told Jesse when it was launching, he's like, hey man, like we got to build out the infrastructure. How many people do you expect to join the first month? I'm like, you know what? I'm gonna push for 100 people. I'm gonna try to get all 100 people on my list to join in the first month. He's like, okay, that's cool. We were 2 days in and over 1,000 people joined while we were sleeping.
Oh, wow.
And again, just the timing of it. And
Yeah.
so he called me. He's like, dude, what are you doing? I was like, what? He's like, 1,000 people joined last night. I was like, really? He's like, yeah. And dude, I can tell there's like 50 people onboarding right now as I'm talking to you. He's like, this thing's going to explode. It's going to break. I was like, uh-oh. So like we immediately went into this mode of like production, just like ramping it up. And all while like I still had a full-time job at this point. And so, and I was high up. We were working remote. It was our first year doing remote as an aerospace company. And so it was like working 40 plus hours a week for that company. And now in the evenings working for this. And it hit this point a couple months after this. So like we made the company stable, like from Podmatch perspective. And again, this last year was my best year in the aerospace job. But hit this point where I realized, and it was probably the end of July, that now both companies, mine and the aerospace job, were about to start suffering because of my lack of involvement. I hit the point where I realized I have to go all in on one of these things or it's not going to work anymore. And man, I'll be real. That freaked me out, because I was like, okay, I've been at this aerospace job for like 15 years and they can't give bonuses in 2020, but in 2021, they already told me I have a big bonus coming because all 5 of my divisions were the top performing in the company. Like I was crushing it. I'm very thankful. And then there's just perks. I didn't even know how to pay a cell phone bill. Like they've been, like all this stuff they've been doing. And then I've got this startup, and it was like one of those things is like, okay, like it's doing okay, but like it's not making nearly what I'm making on my day job. Right. Like, do I want to do this? And I was terrified. And so I kept on putting it off. And you know what? I'll use your quote from earlier. You said the idea of doing something is often scarier than actually doing it. That's an AndyGames original, by the way. That's exactly what the problem was. I was terrified in my head. Like the idea of it scared me more than actually doing it. And I hadn't even talked to my wife about it. Like I was thinking this. And going back to an earlier quote as well that I said, courage means being afraid than doing what you have to do anyway. I knew that like I had to. Yeah. And what I was going to do here was I was going to sacrifice the good, which was my day job, my aerospace job, for the sake of the potential great, which was podmatch.com. That had potential to be great. No guarantee, had potential. But I wrote it all out. I like did a risk assessment, all the things that you do in corporate, right? Like I'm like, this has legs. I think this could work. We have savings. Alicia, I don't need to make money for 2 years if we really budget hard. And that's around the time I estimate they would be able to really start paying us correctly anyway. Like, and so like I did all that. And then I went to Alicia she doesn't like all that presentation stuff. That would have been like, what are you talking about? So I just like sat her down like, hey, and like, I'm sweating. Like, and this is not like me to get nervous, but I'm like, thinking about quitting my job. And she just goes, what? And I was like, oh no, here we go. Like, here we go. And she's like, and I just explained it. And she's like, okay, it's a good idea. You should do it. And like, that gave me the faith and the courage to like, go to the company. And man, it was tough, man. But I like, we had an in-person meeting, just the key team of the company. And while I was there, I told my CEO, I'm like, hey, it's time for me to go. I have to stop. And I was like, I know we're a public company. I'm high up. I'm like, I can give a 90-day notice as long as my hours can taper off, and then I'll be done. And he told me, he's like, man, Alex, he's like, I have a big bonus for you. I can't give it to you this year. Do you want to hang around? And I was like, I just sat there for a second. I was like, I can't. Like, this goes beyond even my feelings. I'm like, this feels purpose, right? And I'm like, I have to follow this. I have to explore this. And he goes, man, I had a feeling you'd say that. He's like, you've never been one I've seen to be motivated by money. He's like, which is very like unique. He's like, and I admire it. He goes, you're gonna be successful at what you do. He literally leaned across the table, shook my hand, and said, well, we'll start your final 90 days today. And man, so the next 90 days, I did my best. I found the balance because I was working less hours in aerospace, more in Podmatch, and just trying to keep it all balanced while having some form of personal life, right? And December 7th, 2020 was my last day in corporate. And I went there for my exiting interview with the HR department. And I walked out that day. Again, not much of a crier in my life. I just looked at the building and cried, man. It still gets me choked up to think about it. But like, man, I love that career. But I remember like I was scared. And it was still like what you said, it was the idea of it. It was still scary to me. I'm like, am I really going to become a full-time entrepreneur? Am I going to be full-time supporting content creators? Like, is that going to be my life? Can I actually do this? Like, am I equipped without having a board behind me and a C-suite to work alongside? Like, I don't know. So I just stood there and I cried for me. I'm like, man, I hope I just didn't make the worst mistake of my life. But at the end of the day, man, there was this purpose. There was this drive inside that I still can't explain. And so December 8th, I think I took a little bit of time for myself, December 7th after that exiting interview, but December 8th, I hit the ground running and just said, you know what, we're going to give this thing all, we're going to give it all we got. And so I talked with Alicia and Jesse. It was just the three of us at that point. I was like, let's give this thing a real shot and let's see what we can do together here. Let's see if we can actually really support this podcasting industry at a high level so that they can ultimately serve their listeners better. And man, the rest is kind of history since then. Like we've grown things, we've changed things, we've evolved, we continue to improve. We had tons of ups and downs. I've made more mistakes than I can imagine, but I'll tell you what, today I'm grateful to be doing better than I ever have in my life and enjoying it more than I ever have in my life. And it's just beautiful to be part of a community with so many creators that have a desire to serve other people. And that's what ultimately I find, like someone like you, Andy, like I know you're in this for your listeners. Like you're in it to serve them and to help them.
Oh yeah.
I've met very few podcasters that don't share that. And man, what a beautiful thing. Like I'm glad that I took that risk. Like the sake of the good for the potential great. It's led to me where I am today.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. And like, I mean, look how much it's paid off, of course. Something that like kind of struck me there was like, I was thinking while you were talking there, it's like the crash in 2008 was like your COVID, wasn't it? Because where the world stopped for everybody else in 2020, that's when everything kind of opened up again for you. Which I think is like quite fascinating. But then of course it does feed into the fact that podcasting is one of those things that has done nothing but grow. Like, you know, more podcasts out there now than there ever has been, and that's only going to continue to grow. And obviously leaving an industry after 15 years is something that like gave you that second chance that at one point you never thought that you might have had. Of course, like there's going to be that kind of anxiety about it, that kind of fear. It's like, am I making the right decision? And I think when you ask yourself, am I making the right decision? That's like the kind of biggest blocker sometimes, because there's no right or wrong answer. I don't think there's any right or wrong answer, because ultimately, if you go and try and follow your passions and do something, if you know you can, if you know there's potential, if it doesn't work out, then it doesn't work out. Like, I don't think it's based on the wrong decision of like leaving your initial career. But one thing I want to ask you, based on everything you've just said, since starting up Podmatch and fast forward like the last 4.5 to 5 years, has it ever felt like work to you?
Yeah, there's days when there's days when, I mean, it is work, right? And there's days when you definitely feel that it's work. And typically it's when I don't get to do the part that I love. Like coming from corporate, coming from operations, like I'm good at automating and delegating and building out systems. So a lot of the big picture stuff that most founders or CEOs would work on, I don't necessarily work on a whole lot. I spend a lot of time with people. The majority of my time is talking with podcasters, whether it be on a call, whether it be on something like a podcast interview like this, or just in messages and emails. It's interaction. And I love that side of it. What I don't enjoy is like, here's an example. We grew to the point where we got on the US government radar from a tax standpoint, which not that we were doing anything wrong, but they're like, okay, you've grown to the point now we need all these things from you, which I'm grateful we reached that point. But I'll tell you what, it was a few weeks of just straight up pain. Because like, here I am on calls with my CPA, on calls with a developer, on call with third parties, and like my wife sitting on hold with the IRS for 30 minutes just to get hung up on at the end of it. Right. Like, and there was a few weeks of that where I'm like, I hate this, you know, like, like but the thing is, it's a direct, it's directly correlated with the fact that we're growing and we're serving people really well. So I always have to bring myself back to that reminder, but that's the type of thing that feels like work. And so a great example is just like, we needed to have, an automated way to do W-8s and W-9s. W-8s for people that are international out of the United States, and W-9s for people that are in the United States when they reach a certain threshold of the affiliate commission. And one of our goals is to pay podcast hosts. And we wanted to pay podcast hosts a lot more. And so the government hit us up and they're like, oh, you got to have these forms for people that break this threshold, because we're going to charge you an extra 30% on top of everything you do. I'm like, okay. Like, and I don't know how to do that. Like, you don't know until you get there. Our CPA had to learn as well. And he's been in the game for like 20 some odd years. And he's like, wow, he said, like, I've never taken a company to the level that you guys are at. And that stuff to me feels like work. On those days though, I remind myself that this work is here because we're serving people really well. And our future people are going to thank us for this. Because if we can automate this and put it on us instead of on them, then that's a win. Because the last thing I want to do to a creator that's already busy and having fun, enjoying it, is say, hey, now fill out all this paperwork, right? Like, if we can handle that internally, as much pain as that brings on, we got to do it. it definitely causes a few weeks here and there of stress and pain and not joy. But like for me, my centering thing is going back to the fact that we're doing this to better things for somebody else. And that's kind of like my way of grounding it. But yeah, man, I do not enjoy that stuff.
I fully resonate with everything you're saying there because, like, I do this part time, but even at that, you invest a lot of hours into it, and there is like a lot that goes into it. And like, even for myself, there are parts of this that I just don't like. And for me, that's making clips and for short form content. I don't know why. I do it, but I think the process I've got down is just a little bit kind of I don't timestamp really very well, and then I kind of have to like go through the whole thing and find like, okay, this was good, this was good, this was good. Like I remember exactly what I want. I always get what I want out of it, but I don't like sort of think ahead in terms of like, okay, this was at 36 minutes and 5 seconds or something like that. But it's one of those things like to go back to a point that you made before, like I mean, getting into the community of podcasters, I think that is probably one of the most important things that a podcaster can do. It's something that I've learned over the last like 3 months, maybe less. And that was like from joining Podmatch and even just like about a month before. Like when I started out doing this, I basically just interviewed Twitch streamers and people that I knew in this space, like as a Twitch streamer myself. I just interviewed people I knew. And within that community of people, none of them were podcasters or really cared for podcasts, I guess, but they saw somebody they knew doing something different and they were learning about people who like they were friends with. And it was like, that was like my niche there. It was like, brilliant. This is, but it got to the point I was like, I think if I continue doing it like this, I'm going to like typecast myself a little bit and I'm going to run out of people. And like, the interest from my side needs to be there too. And I kind of think that that is like an important thing. You can have any guest on in the world, but I think you also kind of need to believe in the message that you're delivering yourself. What do you want people to get out of your podcast? And that's not to say be so selective or to like overly selective with your guests, but like know what the message is that you're gonna be. And like since I branched out, like it's one of those things. More people are actually talking about it now to me than like ever before. People are like, oh my god, the guests that you're getting on, it's like insane, it's incredible. I'm like, and it's actually quite funny. Vinny Potestivo, when I interviewed him recently, he said to me, it's just like, I don't put a link in because no one's going to watch that, but if people are talking about it, if people know you have a podcast, that's like just as good. And that's exactly what's kind of happened. Like it's I can see why people have the passion for it.
Yeah. By the way, Vinny Potestivo is totally A-list. Congrats on having Vinny as a guest.
Thank you.
That's incredible.
And he reached out to me as well. Like I thought it was like insane. Like I reached out and I was like, wow. Like I immediately like just told like a lot of my friends and they were like,
See, that's the thing. You've got a good show. And I think that like and it's because you do those extra things that are hard that you talked about, like the things that you're doing them because you know what, someone listening to this is going to appreciate these timestamps. And so you're willing to put on the pain because you're like, someone will appreciate it. And I think that great like creators like Vinny, which everyone go back and listen to that episode, please. Great creators like Vinny, like they see that and then how to spot that. They're like, okay, this person's serious, right? Like they can see that. And so, and for me, like as a listener to our podcast, like I'm blanking on the person's name. For some reason, I just remember the episode number, which was 38, The Art of Forgiveness.
Oh,
listen, I've forgiven people and
Oh.
I've been forgiven before, but I never thought about what it actually means. And like, I was listening, I was like, dang, I got to send this to my friends. Like there's people that like, like we all need to understand this better. Brilliant stuff. And like, so again, a gift of an episode that you release, but like, man, that's just, that's the beauty of doing what you're doing. And I think that a lot of us, like you mentioned, getting into a community helps you decide where you're going, helps you like learn from other people. The best way I always learn is community. And like, yeah. I'll say accountability as well, but I kind of put those things together quite a bit. Like it's just having that tribe. Nothing seems to work better than that for me.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Like it is one of those things, like I say, once you get into a community, that's when you kind of know more about what it is that you want to do with it, how much that you want to kind of like, what direction you want to steer it in, I suppose. Like, and for me, I decided to go creative arts, like content creation, creative arts, because to sort of like give you more like context behind it. For me, it was always like, I've always been fascinated by like the idea of talk shows, but not with like A-listers who like everybody all knows, who you would see on like any talk show, like, you know, um, but the everyday person story. Because for me, it's always like, well, you know, these people here, these A-listers have a story, then so did like the person you walk past in the street, you know, like they've got a story. And sometimes the everyday man's story could be a lot more valuable, or it could hold a lot more weight, or it could just be more interesting or anything, but it could just be slept on because nobody knows who they are. And I kind of just think, why not give that a voice? Why not bring that to life? And I mean, it's something that I used to ponder that when I was a kid, and then some like 20 years later, I decided, let's give it a go.
Man, I respect that so much. I love that you thought about this when you were a kid. And listen, to me, that's the beauty of podcasting is like, yes, there are the shows that go after strictly the A-list people, but and I'm not trying to be mean, but the reality is most of them are media trained. They have their sound bites. You could listen on 10 different podcasts. They're going to say exactly the same thing, like word
100%.
for word. Like it's almost, and their following will listen. And some people are like, oh, but I want all the listeners. I'm like, okay, I get that. But like, to me, capturing like the podcasts that have the most impact in my life, the people that I've listened to are people like your guest, Terry, that I talked about earlier. That's just another person. And I don't mean to
Yeah.
like downplay it, but that's, I have not seen them on TV. I don't know who they are, but I resonate with their story. She
Exactly.
homeschooled her 4 kids. I'm one of 4 and I was homeschooled, right? Like, so
Yeah.
it's just like, there's little things like that where there's crossover. I'm like, okay, I want to hear her story. Like, this is a different perspective. And so all of my favorite podcast episodes I've ever heard, the ones I've saved on from multiple shows, are typically with people I've never heard of, and I might never hear them again.
Yeah.
But they just have something that like feels human, that connects to my life and my story. And I build this like connection to like, you know what? I can do this too because they did it. Right. And like, I think that empowered me to make me feel I can do it. So I just love that you had this like from a childhood, and here you are years later, you're like, I'm doing this. That is absolutely
Yeah.
beautiful, man. I like
Thank
that.
you, man. I appreciate that. Yeah. Like it's, I don't know. It's just such a sort of weird thing how it's kind of come about from just like a sort of a people watching thought that I had years ago, and it's always kind of resonated with me, and then it just kind of came full circle like so many years later. Like it's but in terms of podcasting, like I wouldn't change it. And I think more podcasts these days actually have like a message, because there was a time like maybe the late 2010s that there was a stereotype behind podcasting where it was just like, you know, it's just like two friends with great chemistry. It's like, oh, we should start a podcast. And then you know, which is fine. I am not like putting a damper on that at all. That is like totally fine. But something that I think is missing from that is, what are your audience getting out of it apart from knowing that these two people have good chemistry, right? There needs to be like a message. There needs to be something for your guests to resonate, or your listeners, I should say, to resonate with. To be like, I related to this so much, I want to share this with a lot of people I know, kind of thing, and like sort of encourage growth and all things in between.
Yeah, the purpose behind what we do is key. And I'm totally with you. When I first started listening to podcasts, I think it was 2014 is when I started listening. And sure enough, it was like, I'll just call them like the broadcasters. And it was just always the same two dudes on every podcast shooting the breeze. And like, you know what? Their purpose was just to have fun, and
Yeah.
they were just enjoying it. But like, there wasn't a lot of depth. And I guess if you wanted to laugh, or you just wanted to hear people talk about sports and be rude about it, like you could, right? Like, and
Yeah.
sure, some of that culture still exists, but I find that the best shows, the ones I resonate with, the ones that you can tell there's a purpose behind this show. It's same with launching Podmatch. Like I shared a bit of it, but like, if anyone's like curious, if you go to podmatch.com/about, like I laid the purpose out there, like why we do this, why we exist. And it's all around this idea of helping creators create, so they can in turn influence the world and their through their listeners, right? Like we can make the world a better place together. And I believe podcasting is a beautiful medium for that. In my mind, one of the best, one of the most free. And so like, I just think that the shows I'm seeing today, they're getting launched, a lot of them that I love, you can just tell there's a purpose behind this. And sometimes, an example, I heard a show the other day, and it was about the home power generator, like powering your home generators, like that industry. And it was for people who are distributing those. Talk about a niche podcast, like
Yeah.
home generators. Like if you're a distributor before you listen to this podcast, his purpose was to help those people get better distribution. I was like, this dude has a real purpose. Like there's not just like shooting the breeze about generators. He's like, no, here's how we do this, right? And I could listen to the guy. I'm like, he's actually passionate about generators. Like, that's cool. Like that's such a small niche and small vertical. So it doesn't always have to be like, I'm changing the world. It's just for that one person whose life needs it most. Like getting that message out there, I think is a beautiful thing.
Absolutely. And like, regardless of what the podcast is about, by chance, there's always going to be at least one person who it can resonate with, who you just in that moment in time needed some advice on home generators, for example. Like, and that's the sort of like the beauty of it as well. And obviously in your position as well, you host Podcasting Made Simple, like alongside Podmatch. So what can you tell us about this? Like, what's the sort of format? Obviously, the title suggests Podcasting Made Simple, podcasting tips, but how did you sort of come up with this to sort of supplement the actual site itself?
Yeah, so I'm one thing about me, I'm really big on focus. Like being focused, having one thing, like I just work best with that. And so for me, I always view the word focus as an acronym, follow one course until successful. And so in everything, I'm like, what is my one course? And so Podmatch became the thing. At that point, I still had that entrepreneurship podcast. It was called Creating a Brand. And actually, the Podcasting Made Simple feed is the same feed as Creating a Brand, which was the one about like leaving your 9-to-5 job. So if you go to the first 158 episodes of Podcasting Made Simple, it will literally say, hey, you're listening to the Creating a Brand podcast. So like those things still exist, and I didn't want them to go away. I was like, it's part of the legacy. It just transformed. But I realized I hit a point probably 2 years into Podmatch where I realized, hey, there was a need for an educational wing to help podcast guests and hosts understand how to really get the most out of what they're doing. Not so they can take it full time, but so they can learn to communicate better, so they can learn to have better call to action, so they can learn to speak in a way that listeners can actually apply something, can they take something tangible from it. And so we launched Podcasting Made Simple. And the whole idea is helping a podcast guest or podcast host or both be able to level up, to be able to make a bigger lasting impact. And it became the educational wing of our company. So still this day, someone's like, hey, I'm on Podmatch, but like I'm having trouble with this. We have episodes for that you can go consume. And I'm not even on most episodes. Like it's a very unique format. I'm on 3 episodes a quarter, and the rest of them are not me at all. And but I wanted to do that. I wanted to widen the bench because again, I'm a community guy. I wanted other people that are actually podcasters or actually podcast guests to be able to come in and share their true expertise, because I'm not going to pretend to know what they know. I don't have their experience. I want them to share that brilliance with people. So that was the whole idea behind it. And an SEO expert just recommended, don't call your podcast the same thing as your company, because and then it makes it compete on search engines and stuff like that. So we went with Podcasting Made Simple because it's exactly the goal behind it.
Yeah, of course. And then if you search up Podcasting Made Simple, it by proxy it'll still lead you to Podmatch. So it's really kind of best of both worlds at the same time. So obviously these things have like paid off looking from 2020 to 2025, and obviously with yourself winning Podcaster Influencer of the Year in 2023. Which, winning alongside the likes of Adam Curry, Dave Jackson, Joe Rogan, who is like, these are like titans in the podcast game. And like, you're up there with these guys. And then yourself winning Podcast of the Year 2024. Like, how did that feel, even from like being nominated for these awards, from just having a startup a number of years back to like being amongst the sort of top rank within this community? Like, how did that feel for you?
I never expected it, and I never went after it. And it was interesting, that first one, the Podcast Influencer of the Year award. I found out I won that while I was at another podcasting conference, and they were giving out awards. And someone's like, "Hey, congrats on your award." And I was like, "Is this thing streamed?" I was like, "Hey," it was like a big award ceremony. I'm like, "Hey, no, I didn't win any award here." And someone's like, "Oh, I'm singing online. It's live. I'm singing online." And I'm like,
"Wow,
I didn't win any award here." And I come home and I'm like, "Oh shoot, I won a different award." Like that was totally separate than this. And but it was one of those things that like it was just like a gift. And I never asked the community. Like I didn't know, like my name wasn't on like the ballot. Like it was a fill-in. So like winning that was also like kind of wild. Like people just put it among themselves. I didn't even know that was a thing. And then Podcasting Influence, the Podcast of the Year in 2024. Like I didn't, same thing. I had no idea. Someone literally, I was sitting in the room where they were doing all these awards, and I didn't know they were doing the awards at this event. I was just there to help. And someone next to me goes, "You're going to win this award." And I was like, "I promise I'm not." And then sure enough, Alex Sanfilippo was like, "Wow, you should have put some money on that." Right. But it was this thing where it's just like, I remind myself, unlike the Alex who wanted to be a Forbes 30 under 30, that Alex wanted that for himself. This one is just a testament to the fact is that I am doing a good job serving people. And those awards are because of them, not because of me. It's because I'm showing up. It's because that they're able to succeed. And they're just saying thank you for me playing a small part in what they do. And I am beyond grateful for that. Any award I win from here on out, like I can't say anything other than I'm grateful. Like, I just really, really appreciate it. It's good. Again, it just means it gives me faith that like what we're doing is really good and impactful. But I'm never going to be the guy to lord that over everyone. I'm going to post about it to say thank you, but that's all I'm going to do. So it's I don't really know how to describe it, but I'm just so grateful to this community for it.
Of course, and honestly, take it from me, like I've only been on Podmatch for 2 months, nearly 3 months, but like I can honestly say, in terms of my podcasting, it has completely just sort of shot the quality, production, guests, everything up to the moon in terms of like just meeting the people that I never knew I wanted to, basically, and just seeing
Yeah.
like people reaching out, me reaching out, be like, you have a great story to tell. Like, I know you have a great story to tell. Let's hear it. Let's sit down. Let's have a chat and just go from there. And that's honestly, it is just something. The fact that with podcasts in general, there's almost like infinite potential for them. For just interview talk show based ones, like a lot of people on Podmatch do, which is just incredible. Like, and how could anybody lose passion based around that? I think.
I love that, man. That's well said.
Yeah. But Alex, it has been incredible. Thank you so much for your time. But I would just like to round off with one more thing, or a couple more things. But first of all, so with podcasts being as accessible today, or more accessible today than they ever have been, I should say, what advice would you give for somebody who wants to start into podcasting, like, and they want to kind of not necessarily make it their full-time thing, but they want to beat those statistics of being in the sort of high number of people who don't make it past 3 episodes, 5 episodes, etc. People who want to do it for long term as a hobby. What would be your advice to those people?
Yeah, I love this question, Andy. I'm glad you brought up the fact that like a lot of people don't make it very far. As a matter of fact, if anyone is curious to know the numbers, if you go to podmatch.com/report, you can kind of see some of the milestones. Less than 50% of podcasters don't make it to 8 episodes. Less than 6% don't even make it to 100. And to me, like 100 is like, for me, that's where we really start taking off at 100 episodes. And I find so many podcasters say the same thing, like 100 episodes doesn't have to take that long. It's not like a magic number, but for so many of us, that's like when it really is like, okay, this thing took off. And one of the theories behind that, by the way, and this is like a side note here, so sorry, I don't mean to get too technical.
Of course, no, please do.
That's just how long the internet takes to trust you. Listen, if everyone quits, the internet doesn't want to tell people about you until it's sure you're not going to quit, right? So it's like, 100 episode, that's 2 years, that's the threshold, basically. So if somebody wants to get into this, don't get into it quitting, right? Like, and what I mean by that is make a commitment to yourself first and foremost for how long you're going to do it. For me, it was 52 episodes or 1 year. So same, I was doing an episode a week. So I said, I'm going to do this for 1 year, regardless of results to see if it works. I'm public with that commitment. But more importantly than that, so you need that. But more importantly than that is, why are you going to do it? If you just want to shoot the breeze with a friend, cool. If you say, I've got something deeper than that, more than that, like, you need to really tie it to something. Know why you're getting into it. Know why you're doing it and who it's going to serve. If you can say, this is why I'm doing it, this is who it's going to serve, and I'm going to commit to this long, that's a recipe for success in podcasting. And I won't get into all the technical stuff here. If you want to start one, like, go to any search engine, type in how to start a podcast, and then the word Buzzsprout after it. That guide is how I learned to launch a podcast, and they update it every year. So it's not the same outdated information from 2014. It is updated every year. That's how you can learn to launch a podcast from a technical standpoint. And it's not nearly as difficult as it used to be. It's actually really simple. And that's why so many people quit. It's because it's easy. They don't have a lot of skin in the game. You got to put some skin in the game first by doing the hard work of saying, why am I doing this? Who is it for? How long do I commit to doing it for before I will allow myself to stop if it's just not working? That's my advice for someone getting into the space. Really know why you're doing it.
An incredible advice as is. And if I was to add to it, I would say, believe in what you're doing as well. Believe in yourself, good. Believe in what you're doing. Be in it for the right reasons as well. Yes, Alex, and one last thing I would like to leave you with. Would you like to plug yourself, just to like tell the listeners where we can all find you? And because obviously we've had some incredible stories talked about today. Where can the listeners find you, and like any other resources that you might want to share?
Yeah, I kind of put all this in one place because people can't spell my last name. Sanfilippo is a tough one, which I get. So I'm not saying anything negative about that. But podmatch.com/free. podmatch.com/free. It'll give you some quick wins for being a podcast guest, host, or if you're an aspiring guest or host. It'll give you some quick ideas, quick wins for being able to do so really successfully. So that's like kind of the resource. That's podmatch.com/free, and it's not going to ask for your email address or anything like that. From there, you'll be able to find me. I'm active on most social media platforms. Just look to see if I've posted. If I have, and you reach out, you're going to get me. I don't have any virtual assistants responding. I don't use AI for responses. Like I mentioned earlier, like frontline communication, me being able to talk to the community is important. So if you reach out, you're going to get me, and I'd love the opportunity to chat with you. Again, the main place I say start, podmatch.com/free is the place to go.
And I could definitely say Podmatch, well worth checking out alone. And honestly, if you feel like you have got a lot out of the free resources, definitely subscribe and meet some incredible people there. Like, I can say that for sure.
Thanks, Andy. I appreciate that.
No problem at all, Alex. Thank you again for taking the time to join me on Behind the Camera with AndyGames. It's been an absolute pleasure having you on. Thank you again.
Yeah, thank you.
And there you have it. That was my conversation with Alex Sanfilippo. An absolute honor and pleasure to have such a podcasting titan come on the show for a chat. Thank you so much for your time and for all the work you've done to make Podmatch what it is today. I personally have seen so many benefits since joining Podmatch and would highly recommend any independent podcaster check it out. As always, this has been Behind the Camera with AndyGames. I've been your host, AndyGames. Any and all likes, shares, follows, subscriptions, etc. on all platforms are hugely appreciated. We'll be back with another installment of Behind the Camera with AndyGames next week, but until then, peace.